Take it easy, take it slow, take it easy, wherever you wanna go. Take it easy, take it slow, take it easy, wherever you wanna go.
Now we're live. Hey, people, thank you for listening to us. Again, Here we are.
Episode 26.
26, and we have a special guest.
Yeah, one of the family.
Yes,
So this
that's
is
right.
for anybody that doesn't know, it's my sister,
His
Scuba.
beloved favorite sister.
Yes.
The one and only, some might say. Oh, I was using that as a metaphor, but okay. Yeah, so we're going to basically just dive right in, I think.
Yeah.
And since I haven't really thought about my thing too much.
You started last time, so I think I should go first here.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Cool.
Plus, I talked a lot last time, so I need to go first, get mine just quick and done, and save time for you guys later. Because I think I talked for like an hour last time.
Hey, so, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was...
I feel like I at least got some of my free-willed arguments in there or something at some point, so I was able to partially hijack it.
Oh, man. Well, I'm not talking about free will today. What I actually... Anyway. it could possibly come up, actually. It's now that you're saying that, it's kind of likely that it might come up.
Choose your words carefully.
This has been something that I've been wanting to talk about actually for a while, and something that I feel like in our more modern time has become really relevant, whereas in ancient times we almost didn't even know this existed. And it's the study of psychology. I gotta say, I have spent so much time, especially in the last several years, reading books on psychology, whether it's like a self-help book or it's like the psychology of marketing and business and whatever it is, relationships, figuring out yourself. There's so much stuff that we write, we consume. Our world and our culture is so focused on psychology. And I think that that's amazing. And maybe like 200 or 300 years ago, people didn't think about it being psychology. It was like, you're just a crazy person. And now we're like...
possessed by the spirits.
Yeah, now we're like, oh, they're introverted. You know what I mean? Whatever it is. And it's like, oh, it's different than that.
Can we define psychology really fast or something? Or
ooh, that's a good question. I think it's just like the study of emotions and behaviors and the mind. But I could look it up real quick.
No, I'm sure that's... Like, I just want something that we basically agree on that we can kind of work from.
Yeah, study of the human mind and its functions and behaviors that are given by it. Yeah, things like that.
Okay.
So,
cool.
I just think that that's something that has really defined us in like the past 100 years. And I think my first question I was just going to throw at you guys here to open up with the idea of psychology. When do you guys feel like understanding another person's behaviors became something of interest for you? Like when you started analyzing somebody else's psychology, when was kind of that first like, I wonder what's happening inside of that person's brain over there? Again, do you guys think of any times like when that initially struck you?
Yeah, let's see. I feel like Selah should go first to give me more time to think, but...
Really slow in the draw today. Sorry.
Like, I'm just trying to understand what's happening in my own brain. I don't know what's happening in other people's
I've
brains.
never reached that point.
I've never wondered I always just thought nothing was happening in there.
I was the one
Takes
and only.
No one.
Yeah.
That's actually a really good question. I wonder if that switches like from when we are a child to like adulthood. If there's some correlation with that, it would be interesting to me. Like I would. The first thing that pops to my head. The first thing that pops to my head is probably like crushing on somebody at like 15, 16, being like, does he like me? Does he like, what is he thinking? That was honestly probably what started my care about wondering.
Obsession with psychology.
Yeah. Relationships.
If he doesn't like me, what's wrong with him?
No, not at that point in my life, unfortunately. What's
And
wrong
then
with me?
if he doesn't like me, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's the next
Yeah,
stage.
right. Exactly. That's probably the first thing that I can think of. So probably around 15, 16, which is kind of sad. I feel like that's old. But consciously, that's the first thing I can think of.
Yeah, I do feel like the dating relationships, it really sparks a lot of study of psychology. Because even with like friends, I mean, I think in guy relationships, you can be kind of in that idea of like, you like throwing rocks? I like throwing rocks too. I don't need to think about what you're thinking. Let's just go throw rocks together, But then once it's like, I like them and they like me, and then you're trying to guess what's in the other person's mind. So yeah, that's probably the story for a lot of people,
Yeah.
I would imagine.
I think it was actually
Yeah.
probably 14. 14 was, yeah. But yeah, it's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Oh yeah, I think just seeing like any sort of, for me, like maybe emotional outburst, not maybe outburst is the right word, I don't know, but just sort of like any emotional intensity from people kind of always sparked that for me. And so, it's like people are like normal until they're not. And it's like, oh, that's kind of weird. Like, why, it's especially in like a more non-emotional society and culture, it's like those outbursts or strong emotions are definitely like the kind, not the norm, I guess. So like when they happen, it's like, why that ratio or that frequency of like these, different states. And so that always like intrigued me, confused me. And it's like, that's so weird, And then it's like, you kind of realize that people kind of maybe have all these going on at the one time, but then they're not, always expressing them, or they're not, yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, there's just like a lot kind of hidden, but it's all there. And so it's like, it takes a long time to realize that. But I think you get peaks or you get glimpses of it prior to like knowing fully how deep an emotional life is, just through like more the quality, I mean the quantity, or not the quantity, but like, yeah, the more intense, basically the emotion. So yeah. I don't know what age that was exactly, but probably, I don't know, I'm just gonna make up a number, 8 to 10.
Wow, and they say girls develop faster than boys. Apparently not.
Well, I mean, it's like you're noticing a different thing.
kidding.
I'm like, you can pick up on different stuff, and it's like if you're trying to actually get in someone's head. So I mean, because like that's partially why I asked the definition, because if it's about emotion and stuff, then I see that it's like even children have like an intuitive notion of emotion, even though they can't consciously describe it.
That I think is an interesting point too, though. Like the difference between, I think with Brandon, your question, I took it, I don't know, in interesting direction, but it's like conscious versus unconscious as well. Because I think unconsciously it started much, much younger. Like I was a very much a person that as a child was a people pleaser, very much so, from very, very, very young, and knew how to be accepted by the people around me, and unconsciously knew how to do that, knew how to be a sweet little girl or be crazy and get attention or whatever. And so in I think subconsciously, I actually knew very well and cared what other people were thinking and how they responded. And it wasn't until much later that my study of psychology consciously started. I would say that was later.
Children are psychology experts.
Truly.
If you watch them like, manipulate the environments around them and the adults around them, it's like you see many, many adults with like wrapped around their kids' thumbs. It's wild.
Yeah, that's actually pretty crazy. That's totally true. Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting thought. Yeah, the subconscious sort of reaction with psychology versus the actual like conscious. And yeah, my question, I was thinking of my question as asking it in the sense of, or when did you consciously become aware that you were thinking about what other people were thinking about? But no, that's a very valid point. Yeah, there is that whole like subconscious reaction where people just behave in ways maybe without even like really analyzing what they're doing, and and yeah, then they change their behaviors and they know how to kind of read a room and manipulate people or do different things with relationships. Yeah, that's totally true. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Marketing ourselves,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you guys feel like the world today, if we never studied psychology, if we like, there was no Carl Jung, there was no Freud, there was none of that. Jordan Peterson was a farmer, you know, something totally different. How do you think the world today would be different?
I was going to say probably a lot more peaceful.
Okay, so that's an interesting thought, because I was thinking about that too. How much, when it comes to like the study of psychology, I think that there are like beautiful things that have come out of psychology. But how much do you think, when it comes to the application of psychology, how much do you think it is just like almost common sense, almost like, oh, that's just what they say in the old Chinese proverbs, you know, and we just like needed a fancy modern way of saying it? Or do you feel like
it is some? Yeah, I do think it is some of that, just like a translation of, like a continuation of language, almost in some sense. Like instead of, you know, saying, like we were joking about at the beginning, instead of saying that person has like a shy spirit or whatever inside them, it's like we just call them an introvert now. It's like it's the exact same manifestation. We just called it something different. And so it's like we might feel like we have more understanding because we're like, oh, well, now we know it comes from the brain and not from a spirit or something. I mean, and who's to say? But, well, that's a different debate, I should say. But, you know, it's like we don't even understand like the consciousness that, you know, forms the brain and its emotions and its patterns. So it's like, is it any even less of a spirit now just because we know it's located in the brain? It's like, it's still completely abstract to us in a lot of ways. So we have like a different angle of understanding on it, but in some ways it's just a continuation of the language and of just trying to describe a pattern.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
I would also say I agree. And yes, you're welcome. And
validation.
No, don't you love it? I'm working on it these days. Hard. As you're talking about that, I think that we are shifting the language in some ways, but I think we're also in a shift of like some people say we're entering the age of Aquarius, or that there's a lot of upheaval going on in general culturally, and a lot of
COVID.
yeah, well, yeah, COVID and so many other things, and so I think that there's a lot shifting, and so we're trying to make sense of what's going on as well, and like recalibrating to, I think we're actually up leveling in some way. I think we're, with the whole wave of feminism and everything else, like the dynamic of relationships has changed a lot in the last 50 to 100 years. I mean, just it's mind-boggling. And so I think with that, we're trying to reassess how to be with each other and how to be with ourselves. And so with that, it's finding a new language and being like, oh, how do you think? I don't think I actually know for sure, because we never necessarily had to before. And so I think that it's like that very uncomfortable liminal space, or dark night of the soul, or whatever. I think that we're almost in that collectively. And so it's not necessarily fun. It's not necessarily great. It's like when you're in a fight with your partner or whatever, right? Where it's just like, we have to hash this out and figure it out. It's not very fun, but when you get to the other side, it's so much better and more peaceful. So I kind of feel that we're in that tumultuous time, and hopefully this won't last forever, and we won't have to be psychoanalyzing everything so severely for I don't know how much longer, but hopefully it's not that much longer, because it does suck sometimes.
You know, you sparked an interesting thought. You were talking about like the language that we learn with psychology, and I just kind of contrasting what you were talking about, Paul, where maybe people would use the language where they would be like, you have a shy spirit in you. And now we can be like, you're introverted and there's books on that. It's okay. But
you don't have to bring the priest in with the holy water.
Sage.
Well, but it's like now that we have more of a language to describe relationship conflicts and to be able to analyze what's happening and to articulate, I think with more language and more articulation about psychology, it allows for better communication skills, which allows for more understanding between people and hopefully reduces conflict, because if it was kind of like, you have bad spirit in you, no, me no have bad spirit in me, then it's kind of just like, okay, is it just a matter of willpower, like this is what I said and you just have to believe me and take it for granted? Or if I can articulate it more clearly, well, I didn't really eat a lot of food and I was kind of stressed and here's what was going on, and I think I'm just a little grumpy right now. It's like if you could explain a little bit more articulately what's happening, maybe people would be like more understanding and less conflict. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I don't know that like language inherently increases, or like more increased knowledge just inherently reduces conflict, because if you can't start from the same base or worldview, then even how the knowledge or what the knowledge is filtered through won't even be compatible with the other person's knowledge. So to some extent, I think it's like you have to kind of share a fundamental worldview to have your facts line up. And even, when you say the same word, it can mean two different things if you have different worldviews. But I think overall, yeah, like I think if you can dive deeper and communicate in a more cohesive way that includes like the I guess the depth of something to a fuller extent, I think you will, and both people have kind of grace, I think for sure, yeah, you'll get like a much richer experience of things. Yeah. But I think it's great the way you said it, where it's like, that that basically you can like, yeah, you can get to just a deeper level with people, and like, and I do think there is, yeah, I'm kind of rambling now at this point, but yeah, that I think if you do like communicate well, yeah, you can reduce conflict to some extent. But
yeah, well, it's a good point. Like just because people can have greater skill and ability to communicate and to understand each other doesn't mean that they'll agree with each other. That you have a totally valid on that. People could have two different worldviews, different opinions on the nature of psychology, and just because they both understand all the right words and all the books and everything doesn't mean that they're going to see eye to eye. They could still be like, look, I know just as much as you. I can speak all the fancy words, but I view it from totally different lens.
Well, they might not even understand each other. They might be speaking two different languages if their worldview is different. So it's like, you think the person's talking about bacon and eggs and they're really talking about, I don't know, a nuclear reactor. I mean, that's an extreme example and like a complete whatever, but it's like, I mean, you see that in culture all the time now, where it's like, the right, I'll use like right-wing politics or whatever. It's like, well, if they just understood that like, these people are destroying their country. And if we just, had, the right people voting and, no illegals in the country and, this was this way and things were just set right. Like, it's so obvious, that's how you fix all the problems. And it's like, that those aren't even it's like, that's a very clear statement, but like the fundamental worldview that like causes those statements is not shared by people maybe on the left or whatever. And so they come in it and it's like, those aren't even relevant topics to them because that's not what they care about. Like they are on a completely different axis. Right. And so it's like when they hear those things, then they just translate it through their lens and they're just saying like, well, this person's a hateful person, which they're like, in most cases they're not. They want what's best for their kids and their country and whatever. And so, but like, and so they're, these people are dealing in like safety and security and whatever are their values and worldview. And these other people now are like dealing on the axis of like, hate and acceptance and, trying to make sure that things are fair. And it's like, that doesn't even register to these other people over here, you know. It's like, so when they say
Right.
things, they're like there's no overlap there.
Right. They could use the same words, but because they're approaching those same words. Yeah, I guess I was assuming that people were already at a level up from where you're talking about, that people already had a mutual agreement of the definition of psychological terms that allowed them to communicate clearly to each other. But you're totally right. Realistically, in the world, you get two different human beings who study the same psychology. They come together and they talk about life and the world and their relationship or whatever, and they could be, defining psychological terms different from each other, and based on their prior worldview could add even more differentiation to those words, and that could lead to a lot of confusion, which then leads to more conflict. Yeah, I see what you're saying with that.
maybe Selah, maybe you have a thought on that, because I'm sure everyone's experienced miscommunication, but is there a way that there's an area that you see that's like people miscommunicate, even like psychological stuff, or maybe expressing themselves, and it just like ships in the night between people?
Oh gosh.
Follow your heart. Little heart psychology.
I'm not 100% sure I understand your question. I got a little bit lost in that.
Yeah.
Well, so like in the idea of what's I think that if I were to zoom back and look at like the big picture of the conversation, it's the idea of like, has modern psychology actually helped us, or has it hurt us? And has modern psychology, it's given us more language to talk about our feelings and our mind, but has that language actually helped us? Or are people still just as confused about the understanding of what other people mean, even though we have more sophisticated language behind it, you know?
Thank you.
I think,
yeah,
Paul, what you said, like early on about something like when you communicate, people having like, you're like, oh, as long as people have grace and compassion or something like that, like, you know, that it changes things, something along those lines. But that's what stuck in my head. And I think, Brandon, to your point, it really doesn't matter whether we have the fancy words or not. It really comes down to grace and compassion, because like for me, in my experience, like I've spent a lot of time, I love communication. I love it. It just fascinates me. And having lived in other countries where they speak other languages and connecting with people where I've never even talked to them in like a full sentence in their own language and whatnot, and connecting with them, it's so fascinating to me. And having my own parents who have had interesting communication issues and learning through them, it's just fascinating to me. So I've spent so much time trying to learn good communication, and I recently was just very convicted of how you can have all the fancy words, but then it's like I've been talking to my partner, and like we keep getting into all these arguments and whatnot, and it's like we both are very passionate about communication and speaking our minds and all the things, but it's just like these blow up whatever, and it's because I was lacking grace and compassion, and like really pausing and seeing him. And it's like, yeah, I was doing the whole thing of like, I feel this and this is my experience of whatever. And it still just like was not right because I wasn't seeing him. And so I think it doesn't matter personally, how great we are at psychology or anything else, or if you're just like a very simple person that whatever, but like if you're a person filled with love and grace and compassion, then that smooths all conflict in the end, I think.
Yeah, I definitely hear you on that. There's plenty of times where I think to myself, you know, I'm talking to my wife and I'm like, I'm saying all the right words according to Saint Brene Brown, and somehow nothing's happening. I'm speaking all the magical Brene words here. What's going on? And really, at the end of the day, what my wife was looking for was for me to shut up and just give her a hug. Yes, that's it. Yes, it was like I did not need to speak fancy psychology. I needed to be like, oh, there, baby. Let me give you a hug.
100%. You just have defined women in like 30 seconds. All the men listening. That's all they need. That's all we need.
I literally wrote down a note at one point that was like, just give her a hug multiple times a day. And I was like, oh yeah, did I give you my hug? Why don't I give you
It was probably life-changing.
Shut up and hug.
Yeah, shut up and hug. I should have a t-shirt that says shut up and hug.
Well, because you guys just want to fix things. It's really sweet, but sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes talking is like the less efficient way.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and that's the fascinating thing about communication, right? Like communication isn't only words. It's our body language. It's the electromagnetic experience between us. It's what we see in our eyes. It's pheromones. It's it's the tone of our voice. It's so many things. It's yeah. So anyway, I love that.
Yeah.
So now you just gotta hyper analyze that and be really self-conscious every time you interact. No, don't do that.
Yeah.
Just give someone a hug.
Oh man. So as inspiring as much as I love reading psychology and studying it, as inspiring as it is, potentially what I'm hearing from all this is it might have been better for me to just be ignorant
and loving
and just loving.
Yeah. You just wasted so much of your life, Brandon. I'm sorry to tell you.
No, I feel like the psychology was worth it, even if the principle at the end of the day was like, you know, I just need to love this person more. I just need to have more compassion, just be more patient. Like, even if it's something more on the side of willpower and mustering something up within me, I think understanding more of it was needed for me. If only just because I'm a very analytical person and like I like knowing the details. So I think it makes it more satisfying to me that like, wow, we accomplished all of this psychological groundwork here just by a hug. Wow, that was great, man. I'd pay money for that.
I think that's why ultimately like psychology is more for you than anybody else. You know, it's like if you're learning it, it's more because like you said, it's interesting, or you know, it makes you feel connected to people, or like your place in the world better. Like I don't necessarily, and yeah, and even like when it's an outward focused thing, it actually still like people. I think it's why all the psychologists become therapists at the end of the day, or whatever, you know. But you know, because it's like even if you're applying it to somebody else, it's usually so that your interactions can go better. Like it's always like a inward, or it's often an inward focused thing where it's like, you know, oh, like I need to, you know, they snapped at me. I'm going to psychologically analyze them. And so I know it wasn't personal, you know, it's because they had a bad day. And so it doesn't reflect on me, you know, it's just because they had a bad day or whatever, you know, or it's like, well, I want to, you know, smooth over this argument. And so I'm going to use my psychological tricks to like know that, you know, what to do. So that way, like, you know, I'm avoiding conflict or whatever it is, you know, it's like, it's very hard to have like a not pure, because I don't think it's bad to like, you know, honor or try to like serve yourself in those ways. But yeah, I don't know. Like it's hard to find like a very pure application. And I guess my final thought on it was just that basically if I think whatever you learn, it's just going to be expressed by the person you are. So it's like if you're already on like a good path, learning more psychology is just going to be fruitful because of that. If you're on a negative path, you're going to use it to manipulate people or, you know, try to, you know, be weird with it instead of wholesome.
Yeah. I was going to talk about that actually. I was going to ask you guys, how much do you feel like psychology has been used for good versus used for evil? Like if we only looked at how psychology has been used in dictatorships, propaganda,
advertising,
advertising, the marketing things, you know, manipulation of people. It's like, if you think of how people studied psychology, got really smart with it, and then misused it, do you feel like that? Yeah, social media stuff. It's like, do you feel like there was more evil that's been done by the study of psychology, just the way we've used it? That was something I was thinking about. Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to say, but definitely some things on like a mass level have definitely been like the misuse of psychology, you know?
I think most things on a mass level have been misused for whatever reason. I don't think whatever these systems are supposed to be as big as they are, but yeah, I usually see like all the best things happening at the smallest grassroots levels, and then the worst things happening at the highest levels is what I kind of see. So, I mean, you even talk about like Brene Brown, you know, it's like how many people have had their like experiences changed because of reading that, you know, and able to integrate that knowledge into their own life and like change their behaviors and patterns and stuff. So, yeah. That's where a lot of the change comes, I think, is just people becoming maybe more aware. And it's like not even a communication thing. It's like they learn and then it just subtly transforms them and their interactions. And it's like you don't even consciously think about like, oh, I'm going to use psychology here. It's like you've just taken in more knowledge or wisdom, and then it reflects naturally in your life.
Yeah, I've thought about that sometimes. Like when I read a book that is talking about some kind of point of psychology, you know, the winning mindset for being a successful business owner. I mean, you know, whatever it is. Yeah. The 12-step program. You know, whatever it is, it's like, am I actually reading something that's giving me like useful skills and tips, or am I just reading something that's making me motivated? And by being motivated, I'm just sort of like naturally doing the things that like I could have intuitively done before. I just didn't feel like doing those things. But now that I'm reading this book, I'm like getting all energized and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do this stuff. And it's like, I kind of already knew that stuff anyway. Like I could have figured it out. I don't know. I think about that sometimes.
Yeah, it just usually boils down to like follow through and don't be lazy.
And though I would say it's that and maybe this is actually interesting. I think a lot of communication is authenticity. It's like we're just being real and honest with somebody, like sharing our experience, right? And what I mean, except for when it gets tweaked with like advertising and social media and everything. But when you're talking about business,
there's no free will.
It's so painful. With business, every time I've taken a business class, my business has gotten worse. I stress out. It's miserable. It's awful. And it feels really fake to me. And every time I choose to turn my business into what I want it to be, based off of, my intuitive knowledge on how people want to be treated, on how they want to have an experience. Like, what would I want in a good experience? Like, how do I want to make this as quality and great as possible? And like kind of getting into people's minds that way, my business flourishes. Like usually they say it takes about 2 years for a massage business to really, take off. And within like 9 months ish, I was very solid.
Especially after we post all your links on this podcast.
I mean, like at this point, like I'm having a hard time fitting everybody in, but it came back to authenticity and like that love and compassion and grace, like for myself, for my clients, for everyone. And so it's interesting because you can take all the business classes, you can take all the whatever you want, but it comes back to authenticity. And I wonder if even before we had Brene Brown and Jordan Peterson on all of the greats,
authenticity didn't exist before that.
Fair. Thing. Then they were doomed.
Socrates, get out of here.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny. So just love people, grassroots, be authentic.
Give hugs.
Yeah.
I'm hearing it. Give hugs. That's right.
Eat breakfast in the morning.
That's right. There you go, people. You don't need to read another psychology book. We figured it out for you.
Save a lot of money and time.
Well,
yep. Instead, just listen to this podcast.
Except for the economy is going to crash now that nobody's buying self-help books.
All those writers might have to go get a real job.
Sorry, Brene.
No.
Whoops.
They're going to lose their jobs to AI anyway.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, you see all these posts of people like asking Chat GPT, like, how can I not be depressed? It's like, well, stop using Chat GPT for one. No, I'm just kidding. It doesn't say that. But
what people need to be asking is, Chat GPT, can you give me a hug? So they need to be asking.
Yeah.
That's-
Yeah. Weird world we're getting into here.
All right.
Says
On
the guy
that note,
like taking pictures of himself for AI just 30 minutes ago.
Oh man.
And he's my blood.
Yep. That's how I can speak on how weird it's going to be. I'm leading the charge. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So what inspires you, Paul?
Yeah, I'll just go with a short one. It's like, we'll keep it to like 5-10 minutes even. So we don't blow all your time. But I was just going to bring up scuba diving. I think I've brought it up before at one point. But since you guys both are certified, I'm going to grill you.
I didn't know that you were certified.
Been
That's cool.
on one good dive ever. So, yeah.
Well,
I did that in South Africa, but that was in a cage. No, I went out to the islands.
Yeah. I've also been out to the islands. So now, Paul, you're the only one left.
That's where I want to go. Yeah. I got my sights set.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the UCSB course, I think.
Nice.
And then
I didn't know they could do that.
Yeah, I think theirs is cheaper.
Huh?
Yeah. So
you're gonna win the lottery and go to the island? That was based off that movie. We just watched that movie.
Which movie?
Yeah, great movie. The Island with
it's like about clones and
by Michael Bay. It's great.
Yeah. Anyway, there's a big twist in the middle. I'll try not to ruin. I already ruined it. Anyway.
Yeah. People get selected from the lottery to go to the island, and they believe they're living in this post-apocalyptic place that's supposedly contaminated outside. So, but instead of going to the island, surprise, surprise, it's not an island. They get their organs harvested because they're clones for people on the outside world.
That's because they were manipulating psychology. That's what was happening.
Down with psychology.
Yeah,
maybe we just have to burn all the books so we don't end up there.
Maybe.
Oh my gosh. Okay, tell us about scuba diving, quick.
That was it. I'm inspired by scuba diving.
We almost started some book burning.
I mean,
what are you most looking forward to with scuba diving? Is it breathing in the tank, getting deep underwater, seeing creatures?
Yeah, so for me, I think it's like kind of what I was thinking about is that it's kind of the most alien and space experience you can have on this planet without actually going into space. And it's probably more exciting than space in some regards because there's actually life, around. So I don't know. Like I went through this weird phase where I was obsessed with not saturation diving, but oh my gosh, I think there's a special name for it. But anyway, it's these people that go down and like work on, just like undersea pipelines and stuff. And so they have to be
marine welding.
Yeah, like they'll do that or just like different things, run cables, repair stuff. But maybe it is saturation diving. I mean, I know they like do the saturated gas, but basically they have to go in a pressurized tank, take these super high like nitrogen level gas in. And so you're like changing the chemistry of your body. And then they live down there for like 4 to 12 days or whatever. And it's just like completely dark. Your voice sounds like a Kermit the Frog. And,
dude,
and it's like you just live in this little pod and then you just basically work like 10-hour shifts. You just leave your little pod at the seafloor, walk out, start doing whatever you're doing down there and then come back in and you're like still under pressure that whole time. So you just like live like crazy. That. Yeah, then they like tow you up to a boat and then you spend like another couple days just decompressing back to like normal surface thing. But these people get paid like thousands of dollars a day to do this.
Oh, I'm sure. Dude,
yeah.
What are the long-term repercussions of that? That's insane.
Yeah, probably insanity is one.
Wow, yeah.
People like start talking about like seeing shapes in the water and like all this like weird stuff because it's just like you're like in pitch black just for 5 days,
Yeah.
It's like you got lights and stuff, but you're just following this little cable on the seafloor like I hope
giant squid
there.
Yeah, dude, you come out of that thing. That's right. come out of that thing and you're like, call me a smell.
Well, and you're like, yeah. So I mean, like, how is that not a space-like experience? You're like, it's like super alien. I mean, people like these people, who do this, they see like, species of fish that have never been discovered or whatever. It's like they go back to like look up this stuff. And they're like, I don't think I've ever seen one of these before. Anyone's ever seen one of these. So it's like, it's like part of your job. You're like seeing these new species and stuff sometimes. But yeah, I don't know. So for me, that just, man, it's just, maybe it started from like a primal fear of the ocean or something, but seeing how much is still unexplored, how much, kind of biodiversity there is in the ocean. It's like, man, what a cool place to be. So, and then being weightless is a whole different thing. Yeah. Was it a transcendent experience for you guys?
Yeah, I was gonna say it was cold.
I want to get out.
I remember one of my favorite parts was scuba diving. Yeah, I remember going all the way down to the bottom and holding on to some kelp or something like that, and I could feel myself like in the current, just going back and forth and back and forth. And there's like this little, it looked like a caterpillar with like fluorescent purple things coming out from the top of it, and they're like waving around and just watching this thing. And I just sat there for probably like 5 or 10 minutes watching this little caterpillar thing going around, and like all I could hear was like myself breathing and like gently moving it. It was a very surreal experience for sure. I very, very, very much enjoyed it. It would have been nicer if it was a little bit warmer, but cause you're like,
cool. When did you go? What?
I think I went in August. Yeah, because I was just about to go back to Hungary. June's going to be freezing.
Once you go down, yeah, because I mean, if you even think about like in the summer when you swim out in the water, it's only warm in the first like couple feet of surface water. You go down like 10 feet, you're already cold. If you're going down like 30 feet,
you have really thick wetsuits. But I think in Santa Barbara, the coldest month of the year in the water is typically April, and then it starts warming up from there slightly, but it'll be cold.
I'm going in June, so it's going to be cold. Well, at least I take my cold showers now.
That's exciting. I never pictured you as a scuba diver. When you first told me about that not that long ago,
James Cameron type.
I mean, see, you can learn new things about even your siblings. Yeah.
I surprised everybody. I built a yurt.
Yeah.
Built a yurt. Forest. You're gonna go into the ocean. I remember when we would play lots of beach volleyball. You would like just go stand on the edge of the water. Maybe you jump in. Now you're gonna fully immerse yourself. Next thing you know, you're gonna be like listening to Jack Johnson or something.
Nope. I mean, I still don't like the ocean. It's like kind of nasty and it's like weird. And
have you ever been to a nice ocean?
There are slimy things.
Yeah, that's your problem.
No.
Yeah,
it's probably. Yeah, or it's like rocky, or I don't know. There's always something. It's just, I know this is what inspires you, but I'm telling you all the things that I hate about beaches.
I mean, I seriously think if you were like down in the Bahamas, if you were in the Caribbean on one of those really nice beaches where you're just like sitting in a chair with your water in the ocean and it's like perfectly warm outside and it's a bathtub and you're drinking a Mai Tai and then you love it. But if you grow up in the Pacific Ocean, it's like, this is
it wasn't that bad. You guys are so dramatic.
There's an oil spill off the coast, it's like step in a plastic bag when you like walk out into the ocean. It's like,
oh my gosh. Okay, wait, I want to go back to the scuba diving thing. I think Selah was bringing up an interesting point. When you're underwater, it is like very meditative.
Like being in the
womb. Being in the womb, I could see that. But it's like you think about our world today, where from like waking up in the morning to going to bed, you're never that far away from devices, lights, reading texts, other people that you're interacting with. When you're down in the bottom of the ocean, it's like whoa, I am underneath the existing world that I normally am alive in. And I can only just hear kind of like the sounds of nature, and it's all muffled and it's like overwhelming. And you just, your own breathing that you're feeling,
Pressure.
and you all the pressure, you're feeling the water, the level of sensation and what you're paying attention to is completely different. Such a different experience for your mind. And I think that that's like actually really enjoyable.
How deep did you go, Brandon?
How deep did I go? All the way.
Yeah.
I think I went down to like 40 feet. I
Nice.
think that's the deepest. When I was diving in the Caribbean, it only went down to like maybe 30 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I haven't been in anything deeper than that. Yeah.
Did your ears hurt or anything?
No, my ears didn't hurt. Not that I can remember. I don't remember really having any like negative repercussions from scuba diving. Maybe just like some dry mouth because you're like, you know,
Darth Vadering
for
it.
like 20 minutes or whatever. So, you know,
Yeah.
it's like afterwards you really want to drink water.
Was there any creatures that you saw that stood out?
Yeah, like stingrays and eels and little nursing sharks and, you know, all kinds of cool fish and stuff. Yeah.
Did you have any moments with them, like touch noses or something, or reach out and ET one of them?
I looked into that fish's eye and it looked into my eye and it knew right then and there, I'm going to eat you later. So, I do think that there is an interesting moment when you go scuba diving that you don't really get this experience in other forms of diving or swimming in the ocean. And that's when you go down pretty far. I think you got to go down like 20 plus feet. I can't remember exactly, but you look back up at the surface and you can't tell where the surface is anymore. It's just sort of this like ambiguous bright light coming through the water. And that's a pretty cool experience. And when you think about how when you're on the ocean floor, you're like, it's almost like you're on the land and the surface of the water is like the sky. And if
like
you're like a little crab, yeah, it's like you become the new sort of version of our world on the dry earth, and then like the sky and the clouds up above, you know? And I think it is like a very otherworldly experience.
Yeah, it would be like stepping on a different planet then at that point. Yeah. I'm sure there's some like weird Jonah and water symbolisms and seas. And
well, don't we know more about space than we do about the bottom of the ocean? I'm pretty sure.
I think.
Yeah.
I think like the mapping of space. I want to say.
Yeah.
Versus like the mapping of the ocean. Like I don't think we've really done the ocean cartography.
Well, and then there's
very thoroughly.
And there's some trenches that are detail super deep that we have no idea what's going on with them and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think we have like general mapping of the oceans and stuff, but I think like the really good data is pretty hard to come by just because it's so expensive and all your equipment just corrodes. Which is weird. That's like even a toxic environment for a lot of our technology, which is kind of like a funny little paradox. Like
there's so much life in the ocean, and yet it like kills so many things we put in there.
And humans themselves.
A lot of human things.
Yeah.
I think probably more people have died at sea than anywhere else. I'm making that fact up.
I don't know. Yeah.
Dude, there was one battle in off the coast of like Rome back in the day. It's like 750,000 people just died in like 3 days.
Wow.
Yeah. It was like wild. And they were all fighting like on the sea and like putting like ramps onto their boats. And
that was that the battle against Carthage?
Yeah.
I feel I think that was like one of the greatest naval battles in history.
Yeah.
The Carthaginian Wars or something like that, or
it was the Punic Wars, I think.
The Punic Wars. There you go. That's the word. Yes, the Punic Wars.
Yeah. But the battle specifically was.
You guys are so nerdy.
There's.
I do too.
I love history.
Of the agates? Does that sound right?
I don't know. I can't remember the agates. I'm gonna have to look it up later. But I know what battle you're talking about.
But oh well.
Not the Battle of the Aegean. I don't think that, because that was Greece. This was Rome and like Africa, basically.
Yeah. The Battle of Milea. That sounds right. It's the largest naval battle ever.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah. Cool. We'll go with that. Battle
we'll
of
go
Milea.
scuba dive out there. Yeah. That'd be fun.
So, yeah. Jeez.
Yeah.
Find like 1 billion skeletons.
750,000 at least.
Dissolved by now, but at least.
Dude, if you think about it, like when you consider how much human history has centered around the Mediterranean Sea, that's basically the greatest underwater graveyard in the whole world.
Yeah.
So all the people who swim in the Mediterranean, you're just swimming in a lot of dead bodies.
That's why I don't swim in lakes, dude. It's all fish poop.
Oh man!
And then every other weird thing that ends up in there from all the rivers.
It helps your microbiome.
Oh man!
I mean, I'm sure it does, and I'm sure the sun, radiation and all that, and like cleanses things and whatnot. But there's still that mental hiccup. But yeah, no, maybe I'll talk about the microbiome someday. Anyway, that's pretty much what I had to say.
Yeah, scuba diving. Hey, that's cool. Yeah, more people should go get scuba certified.
Maybe we'll all have to go dive sometime.
I like it.
Just something that's.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah, that'll be. Yeah.
Oh, all right.
If I retire rich, I'll take you all.
Just for being on this podcast.
My gift to you.
Okay, we can go scuba diving in some alpine lakes. I'm pretty sure there's a TV show about that, about a guy who just goes scuba diving in alpine lakes all over the place.
Some of them are like really cool.
Yeah,
like I've seen some underwater footage from them. They're like, especially those like glacial lakes where it's just crystal clear.
Oh,
like you could see the other side of the lake from one side. It's insane.
That's super cool.
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
All right.
Oh boy, what doesn't inspire me is better.
You?
I'm kidding.
Grown.
No, I was thinking about this. I got the text yesterday. Oh, what inspires you? Frog farming. Frog farming is what inspires me.
That's the first time that's ever been said in history.
I've never heard of this before. I'm eager.
I'm glad I'm such a captivated audience. This is
frog
great.
Farming is.
Frog farming. Yeah. So, frog farming is a term by Alison Armstrong, and I realized that I'm a frog farmer. No, unfortunately not.
Oh, this isn't real frogs.
Plot
Oh,
twist.
wait. Okay.
Dang.
Oh man.
Is this like Marie Kondo language, like clean your closet type thing?
Well, frog is
for your brain. No, I don't use psychology.
Man.
No, I'm just kidding.
So.
Man farming. Whoa, man farming. Dude, this took a dark twist. I'm gonna be okay. Hold on, I gotta just interject here. When I heard frog farming, I was like, dude, they're really into grasshopper farming these days, and there's gonna be some like crazy permaculture thing with farming frogs, or maybe it's restaurants,
legs.
Lots of French restaurants want to eat frog legs or something, and then you're like, no, I'm a frog farmer, and I was like, dang, that's crazy. You can farm frog just in your own home. Maybe you don't need 10 acres of land. I could have a couple of frogs in the aquarium. Wow, what's that gonna do for me? That's crazy. And then you're like, frogs are a metaphor for men. Oh,
you're welcome.
I don't want to be a frog farmer.
You have a wife, so I think you're good. That's hilarious.
Red alert.
How do I know my wife is not a frog farmer? I don't know what a frog farmer is, but how do I know she's not one?
I'm suspicious.
Now I'm going to be looking for frog tadpoles in my food. I don't know what this means.
Right,
so this is something I've been more interested in the last week, but in general, I've been fascinated by masculinity and femininity in relationships for a very long time now. And yes, thank you. Oh boy. Yeah, because I have 20% battery left.
Video feed.
You're back.
No, it's fine for now.
You need to pause.
It's fine for now.
You can grab it.
Anyway, yeah, I've been super, super fascinated by masculinity and femininity, and it's interesting. There's this feeling of when I'm with a masculine man, it's like this feeling of softness and openness and all the things. But in general, in my life, I've lived a very masculine life in my business. I've been very argumentative, all the things, you name it. Anyway, as I mentioned, I've been seeing this guy for a couple of months now, and it was really fascinating because I got to this point where it was like, the relationship isn't how I want it. I'm not being treated the way that I want to be treated. Like, I've had relationships in the past where, you feel like a queen. You feel like they care about you and they want to do things for you and they're really kind and generous. And we just seem to be arguing all the time. And there was a lot of things where it was like, it didn't seem like he wanted to do all these things. Anyway, all of a sudden I got convicted. I'm like, wow, how can I expect him to be so kind and generous and open and all of these things when I haven't been? I had been very closed off in my own experience with him for various reasons. And yeah, expected him to still be this wonderful, fantastic person. And so I started reading Alison Armstrong's book, Kings to the Kingdom. It's fantastic. And she talks about essentially how we treat men. It's like, if we're feminine and soft and open and kind and all of these things, that then men, like, they actually respond in a way like that their natural disposition is to be generous and protect and to provide and be that masculine. But then when women constantly are nagging and telling them that they're not good enough and whatever, that's when they finally just don't care anymore and they give up. And so it became a thing where I was like, okay. And I changed in my own heart of like, all right, I don't want to be this way. Like, I want to be able to be soft and open and see like if this will change anything. And so I went over, we hung out, and I just was like, I want to listen and really see him. And if he needs time to be quiet, like, be quiet and all the things. And literally within hours, I mean, instantly, but like within hours, I was like, oh my gosh, wow, there is a huge change and a huge shift. And I've seen that a few times before, but it was just so profound. And it's got me really excited to be like, wow, how far could I, see the relationship change and grow and expand into what I really do want by changing who I am rather than trying to change him. Like, how can I change me to have the response and like the experience of him that I want to have? So I guess my question for you guys would be,
psychology.
Have you experienced where you've been this great boyfriend or whatever and man to a woman, but then she became nagging, she became manipulative or whatever, and you changed and you saw yourself change because of that? You know me.
What a dangerous
Always
question.
living on the edge.
Like it. Let's let the married man go first.
Well, it's interesting. I definitely feel like when that's a very interesting line of thinking, which, by the way, I still don't understand what it has to do with frogs, but we'll get to that.
Basically,
I'm trusting that we'll
there's
come
the
to
idea
that.
of like, you kiss a frog and they become a prince. And so we think that like we need to turn men into princes, and her thing is that men are actually already princes, and that we, by how we are, turn them into frogs instead.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, okay. I almost thought it was going to go to this like Jurassic Park thing where it's like, anyway, never mind. I'll forget that. No, I feel like it's totally true. I can think of like many times in my life when there's been some gals that I was interested in who were very like, I'm independent and I need no one. And it was like, great. Like, I don't know how to interact with you except to be like, you're cool. Like, what do I do with you? But then when there's a gal who's like, will you open the door for me or something? It's like, yes. Oh, I feel good about I feel like I'm being a man for you. Like, yeah, let me open the door, whatever the thing is. I'm dramatizing a simple example, but and I think that is actually something that I have been learning a lot with my wife. Is there are things that like she wants me to do just because I'm a man. She's fully capable of doing it, but she like enjoys that I do that, and it makes her feel very feminine, very womanly, that like, ooh, you took out the trash for me. I liked that. Like, she has muscles. She works out at the gym. She could lift a trash bag and take it out there. But there's something that's like extra special when I do it because I'm a man, and she likes that. So
you're going out into the scary dark outside and slaying the trash monsters.
That's right.
And
I'll slay the trash dragon for you.
She changes it all? Like, does she become softer or more open or more playful or more kind when you do little things like that throughout the day?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely changes her behavior. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. All right, that's the next psychology book. I mean, other book that I need to be reading.
Yeah. How did little did everyone know they had so much power over people? Just yeah. Well, that's why, like, I think even people that kind of are depressed or think of themselves as less than, or that they don't have like an impact on the world, like, I think grossly underestimate their impact on the world. It's like, unless you're completely isolated, like, even if you're depressed, you're still having an impact on people, or like, whatever you do. And so, like, kind of to your point, see, that's like, I think you can recognize that and then kind of not take the power into your own hands, but just take the responsibility that comes with, and like act for the best in ways that like bring the best out of people around you.
I think for quite a while, I've realized that I don't see people as much, like, I see them for my sake and not for their sake necessarily. And I've always, for my whole life, said that I love men. Like, I've always had really, really great experiences with men for more or less of my life. Some experiences with brothers along the way and whatnot, but yeah, but in
I
general,
wasn't a man at that point.
Really great experiences with men, and I've always been told, like, whenever people are talking bad about guys, it's like, no, they're amazing. But at the same time, I think culturally, I've noticed in myself, like, oh, I don't fully trust a man to do the right thing. Like, I don't fully trust that he's going to want to take care of me and to provide for me. And I don't know if that's I think it's probably a family thing and a personal thing, but I think it's also a little bit of a, like a societal thing where women are taught to, like, you need to be self-sufficient and not need a man, and that men are lazy and this and that. Like, the way that we talk about men, and I don't even believe it, but I do talk about it that way too, like joking around with friends or people or whatnot. Like, I just did that with one of my clients today. We were joking around about it, and I'm like, Selah, you don't even, it's like, but do you, like? And so, and then we subconsciously treat men like, and one of my favorite quotes of all time is, how we see people is how we treat them, and how we treat them is what they become. And I think that even subconsciously, when women are treating men like they're not capable, or that we don't need them, that it really doesn't bring out the best in them. And I'm just now realizing, like, that the vast, vast majority of men, like, want to succeed. They want to provide. They want to, like, be that man for their woman. And we just don't allow it. It's kind of sad.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think the point you made with like trust is something actually I was going to say, where it's like, you have to have that level of vulnerability first to not even just like allow it, but anytime you do that, you're taking up the needs that or the possibility that your needs won't be met, by, not providing for yourself. And so, by giving someone else the opportunity to take that up, it's like, well, it's like you're dropping your own structure of being there for yourself, and then allowing that space to be open, which leaves the possibility that it's not filled. So yeah, and then I guess you're just, well, and the thing is, like, people won't even fill it perfectly all the time anyway. And that's where it's like, I think really gets tricky because I don't know, this is something I've always kind of like dealt with or tried to figure out. It's like, how much can you have a specific need versus a general need, you know? Like, I'll try to explain that better. But so like you make yourself vulnerable and you know, you're like, okay, I'm going to make this space in my life to have my need met, right? And then whatever that need is. And so then someone else comes along and tries to fill that need for you. It's like maybe they even recognize that that's what you're doing. You've communicated it and kind of made them aware. And so, you know, they come along and then they take whatever the action is, you know, to try to like meet that need. And so it's like I really like the practical stuff of taking out the trash because it's like very much straightforward, and it's like, oh good, I did it. Like there's no, you know, it's either the trash ended up in the bin or, you know, the outside dumpster, or it didn't. You know, there's not like really that much ambiguity. But you know, when it's like very emotional things or, you know, some of the stuff like that, it's like, okay, well, the person, you know, you wanted to tell them about your day, for instance, or something, and you know, they listened, but maybe like the parts that really stood out to you, they just glossed over, and they like only focused on the parts that like almost didn't matter to you or something. You know, it's like, well, it didn't really fulfill my need at that point, you know, but they did listen and they were like attentive. It's like, does that, you know, it's like you opened yourself up, you know, you didn't really get your need met, but they were like, we're there for you. So it's like, how does that even, you know, math out in the whole grand scheme of things? It's like, so yeah, again, that's like that, you know, it's like, how much do you have like a very strict set of needs that you're like trying to bring out of the person versus like accepting what they can give you? And so hopefully that's like related in a way, but yeah.
Well, I think that you allude to an idea here. You're sparking a thought for me that just that we have gotten away from that sense of needing other people as being like a normal thing. You know, like we used to live in a culture, you know, hundreds, thousands of years ago, where it was like you're based around your tribe, your little village of people, whatever it is. And now we're in a place where it's like you don't need other people, you don't even need your family, become 100% independent. But realistically, like that's not really how a healthy, happy human needs to exist. It's like, and COVID is like the science experiment proving that. You know, it's like when you don't have any people around you, you're depressed and you hate your life. You know, like it's actually a lot better when you have other people. Like you need them, and it might just be good to like admit that and accept that fact. You know,
Let's move
and
on
so
now.
it is interesting. Like when I'm hearing what you're talking about here, Selah, it's really just reminding me of like, okay, maybe that's in the relationship of like, you know, men to women and romantic relationships, and how does the woman, you know, build up her prince kind of thing or whatever. But it even makes me think of like, what about, you know, in a business world, you know, you need other people. What about kind of the father son, mother, you know, daughter relationships? It's like there's so many other types of dynamic relationships where it's like you need people. There are roles and things that you need from other people in your life. And if we turn to all these self-help books and act like I can fulfill those things in myself, I don't need anybody for those things, maybe that could work for you. Or maybe it's just like artificial hormones and you're not getting the real thing. Stop eating the non-organic chicken. I don't know.
Now you're speaking our language.
Now I'm speaking out of my anatomy lectures. I don't know. It's just interesting, but that was
Yeah.
something that you were sparking in my head there, Paul.
Yeah. Well, it would kind of, yeah. Like, you know, it's like at that point you could make a, you know, a prince out of anybody in some sense, you know, by treating them in the way that, you know, allowed them to be their best selves. So, but yeah, I think with the masculine thing, especially, I think that is a very like relevant thing where, yeah, I think nothing shuts a guy down faster than nagging. I'll be honest.
No, go on.
What does it say? Oh, go ahead, Selah.
I know about the dripping water.
Yeah. In the book of Proverbs, it's like it's better for a man to live in the desert than like in a house with a nagging woman. And there's another one that's like it's like the sound of a nagging woman is like dripping water to her man.
Okay, well
there's a couple verses like
then my
that,
question to that is, what is the best way to communicate with a man? Like, how do men like best receive information? Because sometimes it's like you say something and then it seems like they just it just goes straight over their head and they never. But see, I've also had experiences where it's like I'll bring something up and then I won't say anything, and then they'll bring it up like a week or 2 or 3 later, or make it, and you're like, whoa, they heard me. But what is the best way to communicate with a man then? I know, apparently. Well, you guys just sometimes don't acknowledge that you heard us and that you're like gonna work on it, you know?
There's so many things coming our way that it's I think, how can you acknowledge everything?
I mean, I think that oh my gosh, I think just totally derailed my thought there. I think back to the whole frog prince analogy, I think a lot of times when I hear women talk to men, or I think that the fault comes when they get into the like, you should do this, or like sort of that like, shame on you that you didn't already take out the trash, you know? And in your book, it's kind of reframing the whole situation where it's like, I need the trash taken out, and like, you're my hero to take out the trash for me. You know, if you switch it where it's like, ooh, I really need this, and like, can you help me? Then it's like, oh, of course I want to help my woman. Like, I am the strong man who is like here to do that for you. Like, I got your back, baby. Like, I'm going to take out that trash. But when it's flipped around in a different way where it's like, it's 6 o'clock already and you haven't taken out the trash. What the hell were you doing? It's like, I don't know. I was just existing. I'm sorry. Like, I guess I'm not the hero prince. I'm like the loser.
Yeah.
I think it depends on how you framed the identity.
Yeah, that's a big one. And I think, like cooperation is like a nice element of that, where it's like, you know, because it doesn't even have to be like you're saving the person, but like even just inviting someone into cooperation and like, you know, let's get this done, or, you know, like let's team up in some sense, you know, like I noticed the problem, like you want to take action or something, you know, even as simple as that. Like, I think it can be, you know, where it's like not framed again, like as a fault thing, like you were saying, where it's like, oh, it's, you know, past the time already, but it's like, okay, like here's something we can do for our, I don't know, it's hard because that could be abused, but you know, it's like, yeah, I think finding the areas and like framing it as cooperation rather
Well,
than,
I think so much of it comes
like,
down to women changing their view of men. Like, I think most of us just see men as lazy and incompetent, like, unfortunately, like, and because I think we've torn down men enough so that a lot of times, like, they don't want. It's so funny. It's like, sorry, mom and dad, like like our parents, like my mom can sometimes, you know, be like, hey, can you do this, can you do this, can you do this, can you do this, and my dad just like sticks in his heels and like, I'm not gonna do it. And then she goes to England for like 6 weeks and he's like, I've been gardening and I fix this and I fix that and I do all these things, and it's like, but then when she's there he stops all of it. It's like because she's asking and nagging about it, and it's really entertaining to watch. Yeah, but I think like for us, it's like to see, and this is like what this book helped me with so much was like, oh, they talk about the stages of men too, of like it goes from page to knight to prince to king to elder, and like what their focus is in each one, and like what they have the capacity for. Yeah, Emperor. But it's like
God Emperor. Dude,
egotistical
Lord ruler.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, sorry, keep going. Sorry.
And back down to the page.
Yeah, okay, but I think that
Dictator,
when we instead see men as capable and just different, that we can then like admire them and I don't know. I did this the other day when we were watching a show. We were watching Stranger Things, right? Love, it's great, but it's dark. It's so dark, and I couldn't see anything on the TV. And he like figured out how to change all the settings so it was bright. And I was just like, oh, wow, like thank you so much. Like that was awesome, you know. Like I think I even said, I was like, oh, my knight in shining armor or something, and he just like, oh, you know, like it's just easy. I was like, I couldn't have done it. Like that, I mean, maybe I could have figured it out, but like, you know, like that's not a skill set that I have. Like, I'll make you food all day long, and it's just like, even that, it just softens the whole, yeah, but it's
He's
fascinating
like,
to see how like just something as simple as that can soften an entire experience and like our whole rest of the day, you know, like, just by like acknowledging each other and appreciating and not nagging all the time. It's interesting. I don't know.
So do you think like, so you talk about this kind of like pervasive idea of men being like lazy or whatever. Do you think that's like a cultural thing, or do you think that's like a generalization, or do you think it's like people that haven't been around, like,
do you think we all women think
for
that?
lack of a better word? Well, just like, why do you think the stereotype is there, or like that stigma exists? I mean, I tend to think it's like a cultural thing. I mean, obviously Jordan Peterson wouldn't be as big as he is if there wasn't a problem with that in society.
If there wasn't a problem with men, nobody would need to listen to Jordan Peterson.
But I think that so much of it is women, because up until recently, like women depend. Can you hear me? Oh, I thought no, but I genuinely think
speaking
that,
heresy. Like, careful
with women entering the workforce, having less of a, because we're interesting. Yes, we can multitask, but there's feminine and there's masculine energy. And when we're at work, I notice this, even me in my business, it's still a feminine job being a massage therapist, but like it is a masculine energy of like holding space and directing people and directing time and so then when I come back, it's like if I have to then go and hang out with my partner and like slip into this feminine mode, like it's not always easy. Like it's this like, and I'm still in this directing mode and tasks and lists. Whereas like when women were just at home and like you'd flow throughout the day and you're taking care of your kids and doing this and whatever, you're in this feminine mode all day long. And then when your man comes home, it's like, oh, you're so excited to see them and you're still feeling soft and open because you don't have like, I mean, you have the stress of raising kids and all that, but like, yeah, exactly. Like you can, but again, like
unless the kids have been screaming, yeah.
I don't think that kids were as obnoxious.
The kids didn't scream before 1945, so it didn't matter.
But then you still need your man because you need that man's belt to go spank the kids because they've been screaming so long. So it's like, save me from these monsters.
Shining armor has come home.
I think that
please,
like,
whip them.
Please spank my children.
More like playing in the creeks and off in the fields, right? And so it's like, I think now with women being stressed and like and trying to wear so many hats that we don't treat men as well and we don't need them as much, and so we're not as appeasing and it's like, well, I don't need you, so just like get out of here, you know, kind of a thing, where it's like I think when you need somebody more as well, like you're more likely to be kinder. But sometimes it's fake it till you make it, so you know.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna get banned off YouTube for this one.
I think aside from the spanking children thing I was just talking about, actually, Selah, that's an interesting point that you bring up. I mean, I was actually learning about this just recently. I've been reading this book by Andrew Clavin that's talking about truth and beauty and kind of the history of different like literary works and whatnot. And one of the big things that he was talking about was how feminism changed and the role of women changed in society like a couple hundred years ago with the Industrial Revolution, and how the Book of Frankenstein was actually kind of written about like the loss of the importance of women in society. And that's actually what Frankenstein was kind of like secretly about. A lot of people miss that. But when you have like pre-industrial revolution, you have all these things like clothing. They weren't made at factories. Who made that? Mom made those, you know. There were all these skills around the house that people needed to be industrious in their own home. They needed to learn how to sew, how to cook, how to create different pots, how to do stuff around the house, so many different weird little skills. And you watch, these older, more traditional movies, or something with, like, I think about like Mulan, where she needs to learn how to like write and do letters and like do her outfits and all these, like, the teapot, and have guests come over and all these things. Maybe sometimes it was like very formal and traditionalized, but there was just a lot of practical life skills that, like, today, because we have industry, we don't need that. It's like, we don't need the industrious woman of 200 years ago. We have Amazon to like deliver the item straight to our door. And so you kind of had like the death of the, like, quote unquote usefulness of women in society. And then I think it made them more inclined to enter the workforce. And then they were taking on, like you're talking about, almost this like masculine energy. And it sort of changed men and women's views towards each other, And like in the story of Frankenstein's basically where it's like this scientist man doesn't need a woman to create a new living creature. He can create it with science.
That's so weird. I was just listening to something about that the other day.
Yeah, it's like, science has basically replaced a lot of the functions of women. Like, we can make our own new humans, but I feel like that's something I've been studying that kind of is an interesting context.
I love that. That's really interesting. And if they think the interesting thing too is if you think about all of those little tasks, right? Like making cloth, making candles. You also have your own little apothecary with the herbs that you've gathered and grown and everything. The quality of all of those experiences are very feminine, right? Like they're crafty, they're creative, they're slow and methodical, they're very meditative. And so when women are engaging in those projects all day, like it's actually feeding their soul. Like it's, they're meditating all day long. They're being creative all day long. That is like the natural feminine state. And so they're in like where they're supposed to be, doing what they're supposed to be. And then the man comes home and they're still in this soft and open space for when their man comes home, instead of like, I picked up the rotisserie chicken and it's on the table, like, go and eat it. I've been with screaming kids all day long that are also not in the experience that they're supposed to be having and sitting 8 hours a day in the school, and whatever else. And like, I just like, I need to go take a bubble bath. Like, I don't even want to look at you, like do something with your offspring. Like it's.
Where's my Chardonnay?
Yeah. I do think in a lot of ways we have like a very warped perspective of history. I mean, it wasn't all like sunshine and roses, but I do think there was like a lot we missed out on, or like, you get the very history textbook version of things where it's like, live in a log cabin, go to town once a week. And that's like all you would know about, whenever. But yeah, there was like all those skills going on behind the scenes. And it wasn't like women were just sitting around not working for all of history. It's like just because they entered the workforce didn't mean they weren't working before that.
Well, and I think that another interesting.
And so, yeah.
Yeah.
And now you just have to hire babysitters to like do your work that you could be doing
all of like
already.
The cottage industry stuff coming up. Like if you watch YouTube, everybody with like just living in the woods now and making their own candles and all the things. Like now it's not out of necessity, but it's like people are craving that. They want it. Like all of them. Yeah.
Dude, I got to tell you about this. Have you heard about trad women?
I was going to bring that up.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Selah, have you heard about trad wives?
Yeah.
Trad is just like a short for traditional, because that's basically what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
They just want to like stay home, cook and clean.
It's a booming industry right now. Just saying, I can think of it's like 5 women on the top of my head that like would die to have a man just be like, let me take care of you, have my babies, just cook and clean and like, yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. You can't like suppress these things. It's like, they'll just naturally pop back up in society and culture. It's so strange. People are like craving it. And so you can only go so far in the opposite direction before things start snapping back.
Men and women, I think. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, should we end on that uninspiring note? No, I'm just kidding.
Oh man.
I don't want to take any more of anyone's time than they need to be, but I'm enjoying myself.
Yeah, no, it's a lot to think about. It's definitely interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like, yeah, I mean, these kind of conversations are just going to keep popping up for people more and more, I think, until you kind of reach some sort of equilibrium where people can really, I don't know. I don't know if it's like just as much finding a new way as like being able to navigate. Maybe this goes to your point, Brandon, where it's like, you know, psychology and communicating, maybe like people will be able to dive deeper into each other's like modes of being until they can really coordinate and like figure out a way to complement each other in their relationships and like kind of find that masculine feminine balance to like a very fine degree or something. I don't know.
Mm. Well, now post frog farming conversation, now I'm just thinking, do we just need psychology today to find our way back to what we lost way back when, you know? Like we just confused ourselves with a bunch of weird like changing of our societal roles and our identities and things like that. And so now we need psychology because we just like lost our way in our own societal influences. And so psychology kind of is going to like help us find our way back and identify like I'm lost. I need to
thought about that.
Cook more. I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's actually like a pattern that's very similar to the Bible. To tie it all back up into that one where you have like a pattern. So Old Testament, you have like this pattern that's set up. It's very like strict, legalistic. Then you have Jesus come along. He upends the pattern and then, but he doesn't like get rid of the pattern. He like almost like looks back on it and enhances it and makes it deeper. You know, it's like, and he says, you know, as you've been told, don't kill someone, you know, it's like, but now if you even hate someone, you've killed someone. So it's like, he takes this like old pattern that like was pointing to something, but then like imbues it with way more meaning and way more like understanding, like what these things were really talking about and getting at. And he like gets down to the heart of it. And so I think in some ways it'll be like that, where it's like, you know, he came from this past that was, you know, maybe more basic or primal or something, but now we got to go through the death and then like somewhat of a resurrection or something. And then then we can look back on these past and say like, okay, you know, there was these things that were, you know, we shouldn't just throw out all these things that have been built up over thousands of years, you know, and good habits and traditions. But now we can actually go back and pull those out while understanding like the full nuance of them and like, you know, really kind of embracing them with understanding as well.
Are either of you familiar with spiral dynamics?
So, like, yeah.
That's basically spiral dynamics.
We don't have 3 hours.
This idea, they're colors. It's like red, orange, something, but they're like these stages. It's like, oh, these are like the warrior types, and then you move into like the idea, like people believe in magic, and then they suddenly get into like politics and super politics, and then science, and then like postmodernism, and then enlightenment or something. But then it flips back to the beginning again, essentially. And so it's this idea that we're constantly always moving through the same cycle of things, like the same story. We just evolve slightly higher each time and have a new understanding, but we always come back to the beginning. And we have that in our own lives, but we also have that in society as a whole, is the idea of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of cyclical patterns in nature.
The day, circadian rhythm. I mean,
even just the seasons being the prime example. Yeah.
That's a whole interesting thing. Yeah. Are there like cyclical patterns in history? That's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so.
Mm-hmm. Now we're just blending like Jordan Peterson's archetypes with like Hancock. Some sort of strange infinite, you know, reincarnation or something like that going on. Graham Hancock, yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. It's getting crazy in here.
All right. We'll end it there then.
Yeah.
That was good. A lot of great stuff. I got some things to look up after this. That's cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Brandon's feeling inspired.
I'm feeling inspired. That's what I'm feeling. You know what?
Would you?
Some people
Frog
say don't
farming.
look up.
Yeah, it's all
I got
the rage.
things to
It's all
look
the
up.
rage.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, Keys to the
Frog
Kingdom.
farming.
And
Type that into Google,
her
please.
next book
Frog farming?
to start
never-
is Queen's Code. And they're interesting because they're self-help books, but they're written in story form. And so they're a little cheesy, but they're really, really powerful. And yeah, Alison Armstrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Sometimes
going
the
to be
cliche
thinking about
contains-
psychology now and how I need to just
Contains the truth.
burn
So
all my psychology
yeah.
books and self-help books.
that was the takeaway. All right. Well, give them all to
Barb
Brandon.
come back to being a trad.
Yeah,
So
oh my gosh.
obviously, I don't need any more psychology.
Episode 26, everyone.
Oh man.
Yeah, you should go look up that hashtag after this.
Oh my gosh.
Go
All right,
down the rabbit hole.
People, if you
must be
have
a
like not
relative.
turned us off by now, thank you. We appreciate you. I think I say this every once in a while in episodes, but thank you for sticking with us for this long. I hope that you're inspired by something.
And if you want to be a guest on the show, just write in the comments
Yeah.
and say, pick me. And you will be picked because you'll probably be the only one.
Yeah, because chances are most of the people listening to this are people we know right now. So you could probably just text us.
You know where I live.
No, this is going viral. It's going to be like
Just send me a
100 million
Facebook
views.
message.
Just watch.
All right.
Oh man.
Manifesting. Jeez.
Not a chance. Not a
You little
chance.
Oh,
All right, we're cutting you off. We're cutting you off.
All right.
No more.
Thanks, guys.
oh my gosh.
All right. Peace, everybody.